Hello and welcome to The Outcast. I'm your host, HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we are back with a show that's been kind of in the headlines recently. I've heard plenty about it when it came out, not too, a few months ago. And now here we are reviewing it because a lot of people were talking about it, and I said, why not? Let's try it out. So, Invincible is based on the Invincible comic by Image, which might as well start by saying, I don't know about you, Wolf, but I have no experience with the comic whatsoever.
Nope, none with the comic. I've heard the only thing I know is that I've heard two different things from two different circles, and that is a few people in one circle really liked it. A few people in another circle thought it was the comics. That is was problematic in some ways. I have
So the two circles are you're talking about the comic specifically.
yeah, just the comics. This was just the comics. Like some people really liked it and really enjoyed it, and they acknowledged that it had some issues they felt, but overall they still enjoyed it. The
Oh,
other side was more less enjoyable for them. They thought it was still a lot of issues. I've not
mhm.
read the comics, so I can't comment on either of those things and say anything really other
Yeah.
than
But the reason I want to make sure that people know that we have no experience with the comic. The only thing I know about the comic is stuff I quickly read on
I
Wikipedia
guess we
prior to
could
this.
ask, right? Because it's not really a spoiler. Based on the show, would you go and pick up and read the comics?
Well, the thing is that I noticed that there's a lot of them. There's a lot to catch up on.
Would you be interested in
But
like picking
yeah,
them up?
but in a sense, yeah, because there are some things I want to see what was kept from the comic, what was taken out, changed, those kind of things. Because the thing, what I was about to say is that since we didn't read the comics, we all came in fresh and blind into this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we didn't know nothing about the source material, and that kind of comes across if we say we like something that the show did and it's different from the comic, or if we say that we didn't like something the show did, but it came from the comic, that doesn't really matter in the long run to us because we are seeing this as a show.
Hmm.
Not and just because something is different doesn't mean it necessarily makes it better or worse. So with that being said, we're talking as general. We just heard about this show. It sounded interesting. We decided to check it out and talk about it. But in terms of experience with the original, non existent.
Hmm. I should say for myself, my own interest, right? In answering the question I asked you, I personally don't think I would go out of my way to pick up any of the comics. I don't think the show has like, yeah, I'm really interested in this and I want to see it now. Not really. No,
I would
I don't
say
think it's
that
for me.
I would say I would, if the opportunity came to me, like if let's say I found out a friend has it, or if I found it in a store for cheap, then I might say why not.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'd be
But
the same way. Like,
yeah, but
hey,
I'm not.
it's here.
But
I'll pick it up.
I'm
Sorry.
yeah. No problem. You saved me to save the wolves, so
You're
doesn't
welcome.
really matter. Yeah.
But yeah, like,
But regarding the show itself, and
mm-hmm.
we are starting with a quick non-spoiler discussion, and when we get to spoilers, we'll let you know. So in case you haven't seen the show and you're interested, go ahead, check it out, come back. So in terms of non-spoilers, and as a fresh newbie to this franchise, I really liked the show, but and I like how it kind of kept me guessing and also threw a few curveballs at me in terms of stuff that I thought I wasn't going to like. But at the same time, I also have two issues with it that I think are pretty major.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So, what do you think?
Oh boy, me. I'm going to take up my old moniker and sit on
Okay.
the fence and say, I don't know. Like,
Hmm.
I think right have you ever I think this show is going to fall into a category for me of people are really not gonna like me for saying this, but I just didn't click with this one. I think this is gonna be one of those shows that fall into, you know how sometimes you'll watch a show and you'll watch the first episode or two and you'll be like, all right, yeah, I'm in, let's go, I want to see where this goes. This one didn't for me. I watched, the first two episodes and I'm like, there's some interesting stuff here, there's some enjoyable stuff here, like some character interaction, things like that. Like some of it's enjoyable, like I'm not, not having fun, I'm not enjoying it, but it's just not clicking, it's just not there for me. And
Yeah,
getting through
I get what you mean.
all 8 episodes, it never really clicked as, all right, I'm in. I want to see more. I want to see where this goes now. It never really hit that point for me, unfortunately. And I want to be clear, that's not an indictment of the show, right? The show's not, okay, it's all bad and terrible. No, it just never personally clicked for me. If you still find, if anyone's listening to this and they find enjoyment out of this show and they really love and enjoy it, that's great. The show is good. It just never clicked for me, and I can't personally really place my finger on exactly why it never really clicked for me. But just something there kept it for clicking and making me feel like, all right, I'm in. I want to see more, and I want to see exactly where this goes.
Mm-hmm. Which fair, like again, like you said that you said that about the comic that you had a group of friends that like some really liked it and some couldn't get into it. I kind of had the same opinions about the show from friends. Like I have a friend who absolutely adored it. I have a friend who's like, yeah, it's okay, but I couldn't really get into some of its stuff. And I have one who is very in the middle about things. So,
Same.
so I would say I am leaning towards the positive, but the negatives I have are kind of big negatives, and it could impact my view of the show, with it going on, because it has been renewed to 2 more seasons. So we will see more of this. But
I
until that
suppose.
point,
Oh, go ahead.
no, but until that point, I would say that as the only season, as what I saw thus far, I think, because it's not much of a spoiler there to say that this is an origin story. Essentially, this is the origin story of Invincible. And the thing is that for an origin story, I think they tried cramming way too much into this. There are plot lines that could go away and it wouldn't make a difference. There are some things where it feels like, let's get to the point already. And it's not a long show, like it's 8 episodes, and yeah, each episode is like 45 minutes, but still it's not that long of a show. There are Netflix shows that are longer than this.
Yeah.
And it still felt like I could cut a lot out of this and I would have been better. And the second thing that kind of irks me about this, and we'll get more into spoilers about that, is that I liked a lot of the show, but the one thing I'm the most meh on, honestly, is Invincible himself.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I would say the same. Like, he's a fun enough character. Like, he's got some really enjoyable lines and some really enjoyable quips here and there. And, like, again, like, he's an all right character to watch, but there's not a lot to him, and there's moments where it just feels like he never really grows a lot in some ways, right? And this could just be, first season woes, as always. First season, does start out a bit slow, does have these kind of problems, and as you get more with the character, this changes, right? And this very well could happen here. But
But the thing is that, again, this is an origin story, and supposedly, again, not much of a spoiler, but they say that the entire show takes place across a few months. And in this, and with considering other superhero shows of the kind, like some, obviously the original Spider-Man comics and Batman Beyond, Danny Phantom, who all had a teenage superhero. It's not something that hasn't been done before. One of the things that's cool about those shows is that there are teenagers doing those things. They don't necessarily need adults to guide them. Batman Beyond kinda, but so in this, and with Invincible's father being his mentor, you can kind of make this a coming of age story that he doesn't have to be like his father, and grow as his own hero. And I don't think we ever got there. I don't think he really developed, and honestly, I don't think he really had many fights where he actually won, too. Like, his superpower is essentially that he can just take a beating, and I don't know, it's kind of a lame superpower, isn't it?
I mean, he has a lot of superpowers. He's essentially, Superman or growing into
Yeah.
Superman, but
Hmm.
it's very much, yeah. I get what they're going for, right? Like, he's supposed to take all these hits, and eventually you're going to see him become like, I am, Arg, I am Superman, hear me roar, blah blah blah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Eventually he'll possibly get there, but yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like him to get there quickly or things like that, like this is definitely, I guess you'd say, a slow burn
Yeah,
more.
this is a very slow burn. Like, by the time something burns, I have time to go ahead and cook something else in another kitchen. But but again, like I said, the point of him, also the name Invincible. Actually, when I wikid the comic to get some info on it, the cover art that they chose to represent the comic for Wikipedia is him bleeding to death, and taking a lot, and after a supposed beating. And it's like, yeah, he can also fly, he's super strong, like you said, Superman. But is this it? Is this what this guy is? Just he can take a lot of punishment and a lot of hits? Because I don't know. I don't want to be that superhero. I don't want to take all of this punishment. I want to fight and win. I want to be get taken seriously.
Someone
But
has to be the punching bag for somebody.
I suppose, but
And I mean, if you can take all the hits in the world and then not get hurt, and someone else takes one hit and from superpowered person and it would just crush them in an instant, well, I guess if anyone's going to take the hits, you're the best rated for. I don't know. It's it's an interesting origin story, right? It's an interesting kind of coming of age story, right? And what they do with it, but
it just and again, I think, considering everything they do in this show and all this, they could have spent a lot more on developing Invincible as a hero.
invisible.
Yeah, my bad here, but I can call him Mark. His real name is Mark, whatever. So they could have developed him a lot more instead of dedicating time to subplots that I don't feel really needed to be there. Like, there are those clone characters. What did they contribute to anything? There's this whole subplot in I think episode 5 that doesn't go anywhere outside of teasing another season. There are so many. Again, it's a build up, and honestly, considering other shows we've talked about on this podcast and seen, it did get me into it a bit quicker, and I was eventually satisfied with the season. But overall, when I look back, one of the main problems I have with the show, it's his main character, and that kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, I suppose, before we jump into spoilers, right? Would you watch a second? Would you watch? Are you interested in watching the second and third season?
I would say yes, just in the hopes of seeing where some things could go. How can Mark become a better hero? How everything that happened in this season would eventually play out. Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we're only on the tip of an iceberg here,
That's right.
and there is a lot more to do.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is that I'm also like, I'm not waiting. I'm not holding my breath for it. Like, it drops, I'll watch it. We'll probably talk about it, but I'm not like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what happens next.
That's fair. I think I'm a bit more tentative. I don't think I'm going to rush to go out of my way to watch it, but I'm at least a little interested to see if they can get it. If the second season or the third season finally is that point where okay, this clicks for me and I'm in now, right? I'm
Yeah.
curious to see if they can continue to push forward and make something really good with this, because I would agree. I think the potential is there, right?
Mhm. So, with that said, should we go into spoilers?
Sure, I've got nothing more to say.
Okay, then spoilers in three, two, one. You're
Everyone
still here?
dies.
Yeah, you took my joke because I'm using it oh so much. But yeah, so welcome to the spoiler section. If you haven't seen the show and you're still here, too bad for you. We warned you. So I guess the one thing I want to start with that I really liked is that there were two of the plot lines I was worried when I first saw them, like because the first thing we see are those Guardians of the Globe,
Mm-hmm.
which are so obviously a parody of Justice League,
Yeah.
and was I was laughing so hard at that, like because it wasn't even trying to be like War Woman, Darkwing, and it's like those were obviously the Justice League. But with that being said, though, I thought, no way I'm going to take this world seriously now. It has like a made up Justice League. Why? Like this already took me out of the serious vibes the show was trying to get. But then the first episode ends and we see, Nolan, Omni-Man.
Omni-Man, basically this world's
Yeah,
Superman.
yeah, we just see him tear them all to shreds and killing them by the end of the first episode. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay. I like this direction. I like that they were just a means to get the plot started and not something I had to take seriously in this world. I'm liking it. I'm listening. What you got for me? And also, I was afraid that they were gonna do a love triangle or a love square because four people technically, but they didn't. They didn't. Like they said, they decided they want to develop Mark and Amber as a couple, and they stuck with it. He's not. What's the redhead superhero's name?
Adam Eve.
Eve.
Adam
Yeah,
Eve.
yeah. So there wasn't anything with. There wasn't a need to have like a love triangle in there, and I appreciate that because teenage superhero show. Like I'm surprised, but I'm pleasantly surprised that they didn't have to go in the direction.
I think,
So
and this is where like one of my big issues comes up, right?
mhm.
We see this big twist at the
Actually, you
end.
know what? You know what? Talk about that for a second. I have to take care of something. I'll be right back. Two
Oh
seconds.
boy. Yeah, so we have this right big twist reveal at the end of episode 1 with Omni-Man killing all of the Guardians of the Globe, and for me it's very, I am torn on that, right? Because I knew, right, that well, I didn't know, but this twist is coming up. All right, so this twist comes up, and I don't know. We've seen this whole like, oh, Superman is evil. He's going to like take over the world and rule the human race because they can't do it themselves, sort of deal. And so like you see him do all this, and you kind of, I don't know. For me, I felt like okay, so I know how this is going to kind of play out now. I know how this is going to go. Omni Man's going to be that version of Superman that is twisted and is going to take over and rule the world and do it his way and make the human race better by doing so and blah 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 blah. And I don't know, I feel like knowing that twist is coming, I feel like the show, knowing that the show, in my opinion, right, like it kind of gets, I think, that you'll kind of figure out some of it. So but it does play up like why, it does play up the mystery for the next 6-ish, 7-ish episodes of why did Omni-Man kill the Guardians of the Globe? Why does he want to do that? Like, it plays up that mystery, but I feel like it plays up that mystery, and the payoff is just kind of meh, personally. So you're
Okay,
there.
so yeah, I came
Welcome
back.
back.
Yeah, and I heard everything you said. I did have my earplugs on.
Sure, sure.
So so I heard everything you say, and I agree with you for the most part. I
Mm-hmm.
agree that, for one, I just want to point out that how sad is it that an Amazon Prime show and maybe even an Image comic book does the Superman became a bad guy better than the actual game that did the Superman become evil plotline. Wink, wink,
Well,
Injustice, which is a fun game, but the story is just. Blah. Okay, but back to Invincible.
mhm.
So I agree with you that I was a bit interested because I did want to know why he killed them. Like, because after he does, he has this moment where it seems like he was like mind controlled, or it might have not actually been him, but someone impersonating him. There, there was something about it where I was like, wait, like something something isn't right,
But
something isn't right about this. But at the same time, I also think that they kind of blew their load a lot earlier than they should have, because I think because I've seen people refer to Omni-Man as a twist villain, and it's not much of a twist villain when he kind of does the big thing on episode one. You know what I mean?
it's not even that, right? Like, I kind of knew from the second we see him, kill the Guardians. It's like, okay, so he's evil. He's gonna turn around and it's gonna be like all the
Yeah,
things he's
but
told us is a lie. He's actually here to take over the world, or he's not. Like, he's basically like the nega Superman,
mhm.
and Mark Grayson
which
is
again,
Superman.
yeah, which again, this is what I'm saying though, that once the reason I tried figuring out other solutions was because I'm like, oh wait, they're just gonna put that twist here that he's the one that killed them. Like,
Mm, mm,
because I would even argue it's not a twist. We see this happening in the first episode.
mm-hmm.
There's there's no twist here. The twist would have been if we got like that, maybe he has a clone, or if someone was mind controlling him or something. But no, it's just he did it because. And this was actually a point where I was kind of face palming when it was like, I came from this planet where we needed to conquer all the planets, and I was assigned to conquer Earth. And it's like, for God's sakes, really, really.
I mean, the big twist at the end is space Darwinism. That's literally it. Space Darwinism. Space Darwinism created an empire and created superpowered superpowered beings that are all space Darwinists, and that's it. Survival of the strongest. And as
Yeah,
long as you kill all the weak, everyone else will get stronger. And it's like, it's just ugh, just ugh. I
yeah.
feel like
And the thing
I've
is that
seen this done before. I've seen it done elsewhere, and this doesn't really add anything interesting or new other than you know
the fact that it's a father against son.
yeah, that's about it. And I don't know, again, maybe season 2 or season 3 can play up this avenue more and do more with it, and maybe they can start to, and maybe they can potentially explore, like, the kinds of, being honest, like the toxic relationship that a lot of fathers and sons can have with one another, right? In that
Yeah, because
in
it
that very
seems like
masculinity sort of deal stuff all
yeah,
going on, blah blah blah.
because it kind of started there. It
But it
started with the
doesn't.
idea that Mark isn't sure if he's gonna ever have superpowers, and one day he gets them. And on the one hand, the father is kind of excited, but he's also like, really, all you did was threw the trash into orbit. That's all you did. And when we see him train him, he's also kind of teasing him and stuff. And the thing that annoys me is, one, like you said, that they could have done a lot better with, like, maybe the abusive parent kind of shtick. But I think the real reason this misses, and this goes back to what I said in the non-spoiler section, is that the final fight essentially is Invincible taking on Omni-Man, his father and mentor. And this could have been such a satisfying moment to see Mark actually step up and become a hero by beating his teacher, basically. And we don't get that. Invincible basically wins by, again, taking a lot of punishment until his father just decides to give up because he realizes, you know what, I can't kill my son, and that's it. That's what it lives. It was. I get what they were trying to do, but it felt very anticlimactic.
What do you think they were trying to do with that? That should be a question. This should be something we should elaborate on.
What they were trying to do with it, I assume, right? Considering there's
absolutely fair.
Yeah, I assume, like, if I end up being right, or if I'm saying something of the comics, it's completely coincidental spoilers. So listen at your own risk, I suppose. But what I think is that because he couldn't do it, he's gonna come back and just say that he failed. And eventually what's gonna happen is that they're gonna try and destroy, his people are gonna try and destroy themselves, and they'll have to fight Mark, and maybe they'll kill, Mark's mother, and that would like snap him out of it, and he would eventually rebel against his own planet.
Well, so for me, right? Like, you talked about how Mark just gets beat by his dad, and that's it, right? And you felt like that was very anticlimactic. I will kind of defend the show a little bit here and say that I think the idea they're going for, and I don't know if they get this across very well, and honestly, there's some stuff in the show that goes against this in a way too, I feel. But I think what they were going for in this moment was to show this idea of, Omni-Man, Mark's father, is all about strength and, exerting that strength over others who are weaker than him, and viewing others as weaker because they are weaker, because he is like literally, a god almost, or a demigod at the very least, essentially. And you have this idea of, very, ultra violence, and violence, might makes right, blah, blah, blah. Again, Darwinism, right? All that fun, enjoyable stuff, very much so. But the idea is, Mark getting his dad to stop and still leave, even though Mark basically lost and only accomplished, and the only thing he accomplished was being a punching bag for this dude. Yeah. I think the idea is to show that, you don't need to fight and beat him in a fight, in an actual, physical fight, in order to win.
I get it. But at the same time, if this was your point, if this was what we were building up towards, then Mark needed to have more fights where he won. And he barely had those throughout the entire show. I'm thinking most final fights of each episode, he's the one that gets beaten up. And, and again, let's say if he was actually winning, if he was becoming overconfident, maybe I could have seen this working better, because I like the idea here. Well, I like what they were trying to do, but I don't think it works necessarily as it is.
I think it works, but I think they needed more fights with, he goes into, I think it's episode 3? Or
give me what's the plot? What happens?
I think you see Mark go into space, and there's this.
I think it's 4.
No, it's 2. It's 2. It's Mark goes into space because this alien's coming
with the guy that he talks to with his mind.
He's like the defense of the Earth. He's there to check out Earth's defenses for the coalition of planets, because he thought he was going to Urath, not Earth, right? Blah blah.
Yeah.
I think they needed more of that, because Mark won that fight, technically, quote unquote, right? By just getting the guy to talk with him and telling him, hey, this isn't Urath, this is Earth. You've been getting it wrong. We don't need to fight. You don't need to do this. And I
Yeah,
think
I
they
agree,
needed more
but
stuff like that. You know, if they were trying to get across what I think now, I'm assuming here, that they were trying to get across with Mark losing to his dad in the way they did, but still technically winning the day, right? I think they needed more stuff like that to show that that's the kind of superhero that Mark wants to be. Not one who wins by might makes right, but one who wins by getting people to stand down, getting people to realize that violence isn't the only answer, that there are other ways.
yeah, I get that. And I agree. And again, I agree that they had a good idea for the ending. It's just that I don't think it was built up or executed all that well. And
I agree. I
uh,
think it falls flat. I
and it
think
kind of
it's a
sucks
big
because
point.
you know what? Yeah, because you know what? I will say this, say what you want about, the twist, quote unquote, coming into Aliens. I think Omni-Man was a good villain. And
I
I think
agree.
he was a and I think he was a good villain because he was, say what you want about he didn't kill and stuff, but he did seem like a good father for the most part for Mark. He was worried about him. He did want him to become better. But yeah, you can obviously say the motivations weren't there, yada yada yada. But at the same time, it felt like they had some sort of connection, even if they didn't seem see eye to eye.
We,
And it did kind of make me say, you know what? I hope he didn't kill the Guardians by, you know, on his own accord. I hope there's something else that happened there. But then it's just like, nope, I'm actually from an evil planet, and this was my grandma scheme all along.
Omni Man was doing like good things for Mark, but he was doing them for the wrong reasons, right? Like his entire point of doing it was to, to take over Earth and rule it for the Viltrium Empire, and bring them into the
Yeah,
Viltrium Empire
and
and
it
rule over
and it
them
also
and all
sucks
that
because
jazz.
because Omni-Man was a good villain also in terms of fight scenes. Like whenever, like the scene where he kills the Guardians, and he also had other fight scenes near the end of the show. It, fantastic scenes, like brilliantly animated. You can feel the hits. It's fast paced, and we didn't mention this yet, but this is a very violent show,
Yeah,
but
they
very violent.
you don't see
And
that in the first episode until the end credit. Like until that point, like no one really gets hurt, right? Like people get hurt. That you see a bit of blood here and there, but it's nothing like until that end credit scene where basically you see people get their heads cut off, their bodies chopped in half, and their guts hanging out. Like God, it's a bit much. And they don't stop.
yeah.
And after that point, it's like you see that more often. It doesn't stop. It's bad. Honest with you,
Mhm.
to be honest, like it kind of turned me off of some stuff. Like, like
I
especially, and it's one of the things I think it has going against it when it tries to tell this story of, hey, violence doesn't make right. Violence and might don't make right. You should find alternatives and other stuff and get away from this idea of toxic masculinity and such. It kind of defeats that point if that's what they're going for when you have the show be so violent.
yeah, I get what you mean.
Like, okay, it don't look
And
bad. It's very well animated. It looks great, but man, it's a bit much.
yeah, for one, I totally get what you mean. But two, this is one thing I'm actually kind of half and half about, because on the one hand, I like the fact that there's a superhero show, and especially a teenage superhero that like isn't really afraid or limited by censorship. Like
I would
you
agree.
can see, you can see people getting hurt. You can
Hmm.
hear people, say like what the fuck sometimes, or that kind of jazz.
Hmm.
And for the most part, I would even say that like, what, they but just because they can do it doesn't mean they do it just for the sake just for the
Hmm.
sake of it.
Oh yeah, I
Like
agree.
at some points, like there are some points where, like, when Omni-Man kills the Guardians, okay, this is supposed to be brutal, this is supposed to be violent, this because so, and we need to establish a threat. So this didn't really bother me. But then there are like, then there are like scenes where blood is flying all over the place, and you see inside parts come out, and it doesn't necessarily feel like it happened because it was logical of the kind of hit the character was taking, and more like we can do this in that type of show. We can do this because the censors allowed us to do it, and so we do it.
Being gratuitous for the sake of it, not for any like genuine reason to do so, not because like it's
yeah, and it kind of sucks because for the most part, I think they used that to their advantage. They used that sparingly and wisely. That they didn't just do it for the sake of it. But some point it felt like, did we really need to go this far?
I would agree. I think I think mostly agree, at least anyways. I think it was still even then a bit too much, but I do agree they did at least try to use it where it mostly mattered, where it mattered the most, right? Where it wasn't always there, but even then I still feel like, you know, they went a bit overboard with it compared to what they probably needed to, honestly, in some moments.
Yeah. So with
But
all
we've talked
that
about
said,
Mark, you know, or Invincible and Omni-Man, his father. So let's talk a bit about some of the other characters. You know, what did you think about Amber and Eve and others?
so Amber, I like as I liked her as like the sort of, you know, because Marcos also has a best friend named William in the show, and I think both of them kind of fill the role of the best friend who kind of needs to be kept in the dark about all of this, but also eventually find out and need to be their moral support. And I think Amber filled that part well because she legit showed she cares for Mark, and she is legit bummed that he keeps he keeps bailing on her and everything.
Well, I also
And
enjoyed, right, that, you know, they show that, you know, she's not an idiot. She did know, like, oh, I found out
yeah,
weeks ago, and it's like, you still kept lying to me. That's what I'm pissed about. Like, you had no reason to, but you did. You could have just told me. I'm not an idiot.
with yeah, this is one of those parts that, you know, on the one hand, I like that she actually figured it out, but it's also, if you did figure it out at some point, you should. I felt like she should have known why he's not telling her the truth, and more importantly, she should have known why he wasn't always able to come in because he was doing hero stuff, which saved her and a bunch of other people.
I
Like,
get
but
why she's angry about the lying to him, but
no,
I
no,
do
I
agree.
get it, I
But
get it.
I do agree with you, though, that it feels a little bit disingenuous to have her still be angry at him for not telling him the truth when she does kind of know and realize everything. And then it also, again, defeats the idea of her leaving him when she comes back because, oh, you know, your dad and you had this big fight, so, you know, I forgive you now. We can still be an item now. It kind of like, uh, I don't know. It feels off, right?
Hmm.
It feels like
Yeah.
she's a good character. I enjoy her. I think she has a lot of great interactions with, say, William and Eve and Mark himself. And, you know, this is where I would say, like, when Mark and Amber are together, that's when Mark actually tends to shine more. Is when he's with other characters who he plays
Yes.
off of well. That's when Mark tends to shine the most as a character. It's when he's by himself or with people that he doesn't play off very well that he tends to not do as well at all as a character. But unfortunately, it feels like Amber's character kind of suffered a little bit, you know, in some ways to help Mark's character. But
Yeah.
it unfortunately
Mhm.
didn't really
And
help him.
the thing is that again, this is something I also told a friend as I was watching this. I can't really tell you how much the character suffers or developed well when there is obviously more to see. And I
Yeah.
think now that she knows he's invincible and she knows that he's just gonna disappear every once in a while, and considering everything that he just went through following that, I I want to see how they're going to function with that, with, you know, with all of that being applied.
Hmm.
And
I
this
agree.
and I'm saying this because this could literally kill the character or make her better.
I agree. Like I think there's a lot of potential going forward, but it's very much a they're walking like on a thin line. They could easily make this really good or easily make this really bad.
Hmm. Agreed.
Someone we also didn't talk about is I do love Mark's mom as well. She has a lot of great lines and she
Yeah,
plays
no,
off of everyone really
she,
well.
yeah, she might be the best character in the show.
I I don't know if I completely agree with you, but she's definitely very up there for me too. Like her,
Mhm.
Eve, and Amber and William, honestly, like were some of my favorite characters, and it's like only one of those is the superhero in this. you know, like the other three
Yeah,
are just
and
regular people,
mhm.
and it's like those are the ones I enjoy the most. It's like, does that say something? I don't know.
I have no idea myself.
What did you think of Eve, Adam Eve, the
I,
pink
I
one?
liked her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know, I know. I forgot her name for a second. Now I remember. No, I liked her.
Yeah,
I um I really liked her. I also enjoyed the part where she just where where she needs to like go find herself for and moves to the forest, and she actually has like a bit of a self-realization there. I enjoy those parts. I enjoyed her journey in the show, and I think she was a good character. I want to see more. I want to see more of her in the future, and I'm kind of on and off if I prefer her as the love interest to Mark than Amber, but if he has Amber, keep him.
I hope they don't. Personally, because Eve is kind of another one of those things of that idea of toxic masculinity, right? Because looking at her father and how he sees like, oh, I don't want you to be a superhero, I want you to just get married and have a family and just be like your mother is to me, right? Just live a
Mhm.
nice normal life, quote unquote, and all that stuff, right? And she
Yeah.
wants to do more with her life. She wants to be more. She wants to be her own person, and all of that stuff, which is really enjoyable and really good. But they're again, I think they're trying to do that toxic masculinity thing and how that can be very problematic for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and how that can hurt
Hmm.
people's lives, and how we should get away
Yeah.
from that. But again, the problem is that I don't know. I don't feel like they get it across as well as they could, and I feel like
Mhm.
how we kind of just sideline Eve for a bit doesn't help that once more. And I think Eve is
Yeah.
supposed to be or going to be the idea of if they make Eve a romantic partner, if they make Mark and Eve as a couple and do a romantic thing with them, then I feel they failed that plot point. They have, set that
I
up with
agree.
Eve and set that up with Mark, and if they have these two characters get together, then they failed that plot point completely. You
Hmm.
cannot have these two characters get together because I think they need to stay friends. They need to stay that idea of Eve helping Mark understand, his own toxic masculinity, right? And his own like that his father put him through and what his father did to him and how that was terrible and how Mark can and should be better and could and he can do that. He should be better. He can do that. And he very more than likely will be better than his father. But he needs to learn and get past that toxic masculinity mindset that his father did instill into him to a degree in his own way, right? Because
Hmm.
you even have like a line that Mark has with his mom, where his mom tells him, hey, get inside and go to bed and get some rest because you have school tomorrow. And Mark's like, make me. And his mom just flat out tells him, does that make you feel strong? Does that make you feel good about yourself? And like she just lets him have it. And it's like, I love this woman. She's a
Yeah.
good mom. you know and it's like things like that, right? I think they are trying to show like being softer, being more open, being more emotional, and letting that side
In
be
a
there.
sense, you can tell that Mark got the personality of his mother more than his father.
And again, and like they don't shy away from the fact that that is a good thing. It's
Yeah.
just I wish they would let that shine through more. There's a lot of stuff where
Mhm.
they could have let Mark handle situations in a different way and let those and let that idea shine through more, and they just didn't. And the same goes with Eve as well, getting sidelined the way she was. I think she could have helped that idea and mindset shine through more with Mark, and the fact that she gets kind of sidelined to, I want to go find myself and go out to the woods and just kind of disappears for a bit. It doesn't, it's good for her character, but it doesn't really help, get that idea across with Mark's character anymore, right?
And also, there's the point where both of them talk near the end of the season, and Mark kind of points out to her that he doesn't feel ready anymore. He doesn't feel like he wants to be invincible anymore, and he basically and they have this fight about how much do you do in order to help, how much is enough to help, and it feels like, and again, this kind of goes back to my point with Mark, that I don't think he was in a position to have this talk. Like, he saved some people, yes, but I don't. Again, I needed to see him winning. And speaking of which, kind of going back to another point I said back then with Eve, when I said previously that it feels like this wasn't really an origin story type of stories that we're trying to tell. I think introducing other heroes, and by extension a new Guardians of the Globe, shouldn't have happened in this season. This needed to happen way later.
Possible. I'm not entirely sure myself, but I can see where you're coming from.
I'll tell you what. Again, what my main thing with this show is that Mark, in my opinion, wasn't developed enough to the point I felt the climax reaches full potential. And I think if we needed to cut the entire, we are assembling a new Guardians of the Globe, and we have this other, not Teen Titans. I forgot what was their name? Teen something.
There's Teen Force, which isn't them. These are who is it? Let me see if I can find it real quick.
It's also it's also TT, but I don't remember the name right now. Maybe Teen Team or something?
Teen Team is it? Teen Team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fight Force is the other one, and they're like the rejects apparently. Teen Team are like the good ones.
Yeah, again, so like Justice League, Teen Titans, basically same thing. So again, we are introduced to them all of a sudden, and it's like they invite Mark over to be with them and join them, and then some of them become the new Guardians of the Globe, and it's like, how many characters does this show need even? Because the Guardians of the Globe and the new ones seem to have plot lines that are established and don't really go. Like, the robot has a thing for the chick that turns into a monster and seems younger every time. There's Rex, the asshole, who's basically there. There's the guy who knew
God,
the original
I hate
Guardians
Rex.
of the. Yeah, Rex. Well, I didn't like.
And they even try to make him like, he's actually not half bad. No, he's terrible. He's absolutely. You cannot make him endearing now. Just don't.
Yeah, no, I don't like Rex.
God, he is awful.
Mm-hmm. I don't like
everything about him is just awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which again is kind of supposed to be the point, but at the same time, the point he does his job way too well, which is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also, yeah, basically. So we have this group, and so again, there's all of them in their place, and it's like their plot lines don't really go anywhere. There's a point where I thought the robot guy was gonna be a villain when he started working with the clones, but that all it did was just basically to make the romance he had with that monster girl not creepy ? And the clones themselves, I didn't really feel like they contributed to anything as well. And it's just, there are so many characters in this show where, for one, I'm lost. Too many characters, and with ADHD, I'm lost at some point. And again, how if you cut those things and maybe save them up for the future, we could have done a lot more with the main story you were trying to tell and you were banking on. And I think that's the main problem here. We could have had a fantastic show if it just had focus.
Let me ask you this: do you think it would have been wiser for them to save the Invincible and Omni-Man fight for like second season? Like basically, you have, in the second season is where the original Guardians of the Globe die, and instead, like you have them as background doing things, but it's mostly a focus on Mark and Teen Force in the first season, and Mark becoming a superhero and that kind of origin story. And then second season, you have kind of this whole like, oh, who killed the Guardians of the Globe, and you get to see Omni-Man kills them, and then you see Mark versus his dad. Do you think that would have been better?
You know what? I think so. And the reason for this is because then it means I had an entire season to get to know Mark better, to get to know Omni-Man better. And then when you introduce new characters, they don't really detract from anything because I already know Mark. I already saw his journey of trying to become a hero on his own. And now I get to see him team up with other people who I get to know alongside him. When we are introduced to the team, mm-hmm. I don't even know Mark all that well when he meets them, and it's like, okay, already I need to figure out who's who in this group and what their deal is. Which again, it's not that I don't want to. So like I like the one that can duplicate herself. That's an interesting superpower.
Duplicate.
Yeah, duplicate. Yeah.
And it's also again interesting how they play it because all of her duplications like die, and she just duplicates herself just quickly enough so she doesn't die. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, which again, it's a fun idea, and Rex I don't like at all. He can die next season.
Yeah, and Robot essentially starts off with like he's basically Tony Stark, but
I would say a more serious Baymax actually.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, considering like he's actually not a robot, but he's actually like deformed human being who's extremely smart but can't will die if he goes out into like the regular world because he's like very much malformed and deformed and was had a lot of problems, I suppose, when he was born and such, right?
Yeah,
then he becomes because he gets a new body thanks to the Mahler twins. Then he becomes like actual Tony Stark at that point, essentially.
Yeah, but actually, again, with him, I see him and it's like, okay, he's kind of interesting, honestly, because they don't play the fact that it's a robot that's there to make sure things are getting done. But then they also out of nowhere throw that subplot in of him crashing on that girl on the monster girl, and it's like, wait, where did this come from? What? And then there's the entire thing of when he came to the twins and told them, I have something I need from you and you are going to do it. I was like, villain. Like, he has something to do with Omni-Man killing the Guardians of the Globe. And then they don't really go anywhere with it. It's just that, oh, they did him a favor, they gave him a body, and now he can date the chick. And for some reason, the body is the younger Rex, which they spent an uncomfortable long time on for some reason. And again, I just don't feel fulfilled. I don't think like I care about these people. Which again, I want to care because there are interesting powers, there are interesting ideas. They could have good arcs, but when they take away from the main character, it's not really working.
Mm-hmm. I think, again, like we said, right, there's potential for this to work out in a second season, but it would have been, I think, right, it would have been more standard, I suppose you could say, potentially, if they would have saved some of this for a second season and instead focused on Mark and Omni-Man, his relationship with his dad and his mom, and the Teen Force, or the Teen Team, I mean.
Yeah.
I think that would have been kind of a more standard approach to things. I think they're definitely... The way they did it is more interesting, but I'm not sure it worked for them as well as they might have hoped it would, right? And I do agree with you. Maybe there's things they could have cut or did away with in order to make it work better. But then at the same time, I don't know if it would have helped them either. Yeah, right? I don't know. Like, I think there's potential for this to still work out for them and them to do well with this in a second and third season. But like I said before, there's something here that keeps me personally from clicking with it. I'm just not quite sure what that is. Maybe a second season could change that, or maybe a second season could help me to understand more. Like, why is this not clicking with me? And that's when I realized this is why. Maybe the second season gives me that realization. I don't know.
Again, as I was telling one of my friends who watched the show before me, I said that it's hard for me to give each episode like, how do I say it? It's hard to tell if I actually enjoyed an episode or not, because I knew I needed to watch the other thing, the other episode, in order to make a full judgment. But then it also comes to the fact that when the entire season is done, I have a better understanding of things. But I'm also like, whatever I say right now, in a year or so, whenever the next season premieres, I could go completely. I can take back everything I just said in this podcast, and it's honestly kind of frustrating that
because on the one hand,
because again, like I said, I enjoyed watching the show, but there are a lot of major problems with it that I can't ignore right away.
I'm curious, what did you think about that? I kind of got a little tired of them. They use a lot of like pop songs in this show too.
It didn't really bother me all that much.
I kind of got a little tired of it. Like, they're not bad songs by any means, let's be clear. But I just kind of got like a little tired of it. Like, yeah, I get it, Amazon. You're kind of, you have the money to get these things. I know, like, it's cool. But I don't need them all the time,
Although this much, I don't think I really knew 90% of the songs they played personally, so Fair. It didn't really bother me much.
Some of them I didn't know either. So again, it's not a big deal. It's just, I get it, Amazon. You have a lot of money, to do these things. You don't have to, though.
Yeah.
But again, otherwise the soundtrack's, fairly serviceable. Like, the animation is really good. They do exceptionally well with a lot of that. Maybe a little bit overboard on some of the gore, but otherwise they do quite good.
Actually, one thing that like I liked in the first episode, and it kind of started getting on my a bit. It's a nitpick, right? But it did kind of start getting on, is that whenever they first say Invincible in an episode, they would cut to the title, and in the first episode, I kind of liked that. It was cool, not gonna lie. But when every other episode does it for no reason, it's like, okay, we got the job. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's more. I think the reason they're doing it right is like, the first episode, the Invincible title looks completely clean. And then as you get further and further along, it gets bloodier and bloodier. And I think that's supposed to be this idea of like his father beating him, right? And that's
I like that idea. What I don't like is that they have to find, it feels like at some point they have to find ways to just say Invincible at the start of an episode so that they could have the title there.
Fair, I get you. Bit of a, as you said, a bit of a nitpick, but I do get you. It gets a little old at some point. I understand that.
It's not the fact that it's getting old, but it's getting, you're doing this because you can, not because you necessarily should.
Fair. I we said though, like, the animation looks good. There's a lot of great.
No, animation is great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great characters in here too.
There are great characters. There's a great animation. There's an enjoyable story. Honestly, I just think it needs that push in the second season to really elevate it, because I can tell this is not the end. There are more things to come. We just need to see those things coming.
I would disagree about the story point. I think the story falls flat, and I think it falls flat for the reasons I said.
It's clunky. No,
That's
okay.
fair.
Is that let me rephrase. The story in its basic idea is good,
Fair.
but in terms of execution, there are a lot of clunky areas.
That's completely fair. I would agree with that. It needs work, but it does have the potential to, start running in a second and third season.
Yeah, it definitely has the opportunity to grow and become better. And who knows, and the fact that they already renewed the show for 2 more seasons shows that the network has confidence in it and the creators have confidence in it as well, and they have a plan. So if they have a plan, I'm listening. I'm not gonna go super crazy when season 2 comes out, but I'll give it a watch. We'll probably cover it. We'll see.
Sure.
I'm cool with seeing where this is going.
I hope
because you know what? If they can actually make me look back at this season and say, you know what, this turned out well, then kudos.
I hope, right, this turns into, and again, right, these are all our opinions. If you think the first season is absolutely grand and wonderful, that's completely fair and understandable.
Oh, of course.
Again, there is something good here, but I do hope, at least for me, this turns into a story of the first season stumbled, so the second season and third season could sprint, right? Like the first season started off and stumbled a bit, but it still managed to make it, towards the next, towards the baton pass-off point, and the second season and third season can then just sprint outright and come to an amazing finish. I do hope it turns into that.
Yep, I agree. Very much agree. So, anything else to say? Or...
No, I mean, other than if we get really specific about certain character moments, not too much. And I don't think we should spoil too much for people. Go watch it for yourself if you've not watched it.
Yeah. No, if you didn't watch it and you made it all the way through here, there's no reason we spelled the whole thing. But
there's some good character moments in here, I think, that are worth seeing.
Definitely.
That we've not talked about.
Well, with that said, this was all for this episode of The Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What do you think about the Invincible comic or the show? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, and on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.